Welcome back to the channel, everybody. This is the Casual Basketball Fan. So the 2024 NBA Draft is only 3 days away, so today I thought we'd get into some comparisons between the two presumptive top players in this draft, Risacher and Alex Sarr. First off, on names alone, Risacher is so much more fun to say than Sarr, and if you've watched any of his highlights, you've heard the French announcers having a field day announcing his games.
Sur Zachary Risacher qui va aller faire un petit Risacher, oh l'énorme dunk de Zachary. Ces prochaines 10 minutes, Zachary Risacher qui met dedans à 3 points.
Face à Omenaka.
Allez Risacher,
Voilà,
Risacher avec Zachary Risacher.
Getting into the actual basketball aspects of these guys, I'd like to start with some player comparisons. So if you haven't seen these guys play before, you can kind of get a feel of what kind of players they could be in the NBA. I realize that draft day comparisons sometimes give players unrealistic expectations to measure up to, so we won't get too crazy with this today, especially since neither of these guys are supposed to be generational talents. For Alex Sarr, I think the high end is kind of Jaren Jackson Jr., low end maybe Bobby Portis. So Jaren Jackson Jr. is still pretty young, we don't know exactly what he's going to be, but he's a big man that can hit threes. He was Defensive Player of the Year, a one-time All-Star, and can even put the ball on the floor and create a little bit, just like Sarr, who has a pretty good handle for a guy his size. Considering this is a weaker draft, I think whoever takes Sarr would be happy if he turned out to be a potential Defensive Player of the Year and All-Star caliber level player. If he's not, and still Bobby Portis, I think that's not terrible. I've seen a lot of similarities in Bobby Portis' game, more in the way that he has this little turnaround shot around the free throw line, kind of like Bobby Portis has. He can hit threes and play some good defense. For Risacher, I've seen Michael Porter Jr. as the name a lot of people throw out, and I also wanted to throw in Keegan Murray. So he's kind of like a catch and shoot guy that's not going to create a lot of offense for himself, but is a long, lanky wing player who can score and also get out in transition and move pretty well. Kind of similar to the role MPJ plays for the Denver Nuggets. Now, could he do more if he didn't have options like Jokic and Murray on his team? Maybe, and you see that with Keegan Murray too. He has guys like Sabonis and Fox on his team, so he doesn't have to be the number one creator, and he can just be a guy that plays off the ball. Getting into these guys' measurements, Sarr's pretty much a true 7-footer. At the combine, he was marked just a quarter inch short of 7 feet. He's a little bit on the slimmer side and will probably need to put on a little bit of weight in the NBA to match up with some of the bigger centers like Jokic and Embiid. Risacher stands about 6'8", 6'9", and is also a guy with a thinner frame. There were some questions about his vertical and overall athleticism through some of the combine results. The defensive side of the ball is what really makes Sarr an elite prospect. He averaged 1.3 blocks per game, but only in 17.2 minutes on his team in Perth. And he really showed that he can be an elite rim protector, albeit not against the greatest competition. If you've watched the NBA playoffs at all in recent years, you'll see teams constantly hunting bigs in pick and rolls, trying to get mismatches and get them guarding their smaller, quicker players. A great thing that Sarr does well is he moves his feet really well and can cover these guards in open space one-on-one and be a player that's switchable, even as a big man. Call Risacher an elite defender, but I wouldn't call him a slouch either. Typically, when you see the bad defenders in the NBA, they're guards that are too small or bigs that can't move their feet. Wing defenders give you that versatility to guard guys basically 2 through 4 positionally. Risacher plays with good effort on the defensive end, has a good understanding of his positioning and where he's supposed to be, and has enough athleticism to make impact plays now and then. The offensive side of the ball is where people have some criticisms of Sarr's game. He only averaged 9.4 points per game, but like we talked about, he only played 17 minutes a night, so it's a pretty small sample size of what he's done so far. Some people have been critical of his three-point shot, stating that he shoots under 30%, and technically they are correct, but he shot 29.8%, and people are trying to make it sound like he's the next Ben Simmons. I think with time he'll be able to get that number up, but the important thing right now is he would be able to stretch the floor even in a limited way. What I do like about his offensive game though is this little turnaround shot from about the free throw line. You don't see a lot of players use this mid-range shot much anymore, and Sarr does have that in his game. He also uses his size very well, albeit against not very good competition, but it is a little similar of the way some guys like Bobby Portis, even like Kristaps Porzingis, use their size to their advantage to get off their shot whenever they want. Risacher has a little bit more experience than Sarr. He's played 3 years of professional basketball, but his numbers don't jump off the page at you either. He averaged 10 points per game in 22 minutes of league play last year, and throughout his 3 years of pro ball, he's averaged about 40.5% from the three-point line, showing that he's that good, consistent shooter. The thing that impressed me most about his game is his movement off the ball. He does a great job repositioning himself and getting himself open three-point looks, and also a great job of cutting and getting easy layups and dunks. You'll also see him out in transition, but I don't know if this is just more of a level competition thing or his actual game and his athleticism in the open court. Neither of these guys though are projected to be the next LeBron or the next Wemby, as a lot of experts have said this is the worst draft in over a decade.
The way to think of this draft is just to slice off, pretend there's a top 7 that already got drafted, and now we're starting at number 8. And when in a normal draft where you slice the top 7 off and you get to number 8, teams start drafting a little more toward need.
If this draft does end up being that bad, it could be somewhat similar to the 2013 draft, when the Cavs selected Anthony Bennett number 1 overall over presumptive top pick Nerlens Noel. I do agree that when there isn't that generational guy there, it's more likely that teams focus on need and ignore just their overall draft board on who they think is the best player overall. So maybe I'm wrong completely and neither of these guys would be the number 1 overall pick. It could be someone like Donovan Clingan, Steven Castle, Reed Shepherd, who knows, anything is on the table. 2013 is still considered a historically bad draft class, but it's easy to forget that Giannis Antetokounmpo was the number 15 overall pick in that draft. Now since 2013, the NBA has come a long way in foreign scouting. I mean, even Adam Sandler made a movie where he was a foreign NBA scout, so you know it's hit the mainstream. I think it's harder nowadays to find that diamond in the rough like Giannis than it was even just 11 years ago. So we've went this long and still haven't talked about the team that has the number 1 overall pick, the Atlanta Hawks. It was the year from hell for Atlanta as they went 36-46 and ended up getting bounced in the play-in to the Chicago Bulls. Trae Young missed some time for injury, and it became pretty clear that DeJounte Murray and Trae Young can't coexist in the way the team imagined. But the Hawks' luck would change in the draft lottery, as they would earn the number 1 pick, even though they were one of those teams that finished in the play-in and had a very low chance at winning the lottery. There's still a lot of questions around this team. Will they trade one of Trae Young or DeJounte Murray, or will they run it back with the same core? If they are drafting on need for their current roster, they don't really need a guy like Sarr. They have a pretty good stable of big men with Okongwu, Capella, and rising player Jalen Johnson. Real quick on NBA mock draft culture. I don't feel like we're getting the greatest coverage or reporting on this subject. I think most of the mock drafts we see out there is just everyone copying each other and less of people actually having sources in these team scouting departments on who they're looking to take and what their draft boards look like. I by no means am an expert. It just seems like once the narrative gets out there, everyone comes to a pretty similar consensus and ends up with a pretty similar take on the draft process. The best odds I ever won on a bet was in the 2022 draft when I bet that Paolo Banchero would be the number 1 overall pick back when he was plus 2,700 odds, just because I felt like he was the best player, but at the time the narrative was Jabari Smith would be the number 1 pick for his potential. This year, Sarr was the betting favorite for most of the pre-draft process, but about a week ago it started to change, and now Risacher is the favorite to be the number 1 overall pick at pretty much minus 250 odds. Sarr is pretty much a lock to go number 2, and this could be because he never ended up working out for the Atlanta Hawks, and there's rumors he didn't want to be drafted there. It seems like he'll be going to the Washington Wizards, but who knows, maybe we're all wrong and crazy things could happen on draft night. Let me know down in the comments who you would take with the number 1 overall pick, Alex Sarr or Zachary Risacher, or maybe someone that we didn't even talk about today. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel.